Would you like to play a game?
Let's get ready for the Legend of Zelda! This is the Legend of Zelda. I'll be doing a series of it where it's actually, it's Zelda 1 through 5, the original 12 years of Zelda. This is just sort of a real basic beginning, kind of, I don't know, like, kind of an overview of Zelda 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. A great book to look into, as you see here, The Legend of Zelda, Hyrule Historia. Shigeru Miyamoto, the guy who's basically like the godfather of Zelda, I'll talk about it a little later on. And Dark Horse Comics, they like teamed up. And they created this amazing book that gives all sorts of good history and information and just kind of neatness about the Zelda series. A lot of that I'm inspired for what I'm doing here for that. And but I don't know. What I want to kind of show you specifically is a brief history of the Triforce. Sometimes it can be kind of confusing. Like the games kind of come out in different orders, or they come out and they don't really like make sense of like when and the what. And I guess they had this like big poster in their office, like in Japan, Nintendo did, that sort of secretly showed the sort of timeline and how it worked, and they actually showed people in the book I just showed you a minute ago. Yeah. So hey, let's get started. Right, so right off the bat, we got The Legend of Zelda, right? So I'm just going to kind of show you sequentially kind of what the games go and how it kind of goes to the Triforce. Legend of Zelda was like the first game in the series, right? It came out in 1986, as you kind of see there. It's awesome. It has so much influence in all the different games it's the beginning. It set the stone, right? And we'll be talking about that next week. So let me go to the next one. The Adventure of Link. This sort of sold tons of games, but also like the unpopular of the Zelda games. But it has awesome things. We'll also show that too. 1987, 2 years later, we had The Adventure of Link. Then we had A Link to the Past, which, while Adventure of Link was very different than The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, in a lot of ways, is The Legend of Zelda, but it's them expanding upon it and taking it on a different timeline. So, we also have Link's Awakening, which was sort of like, because The Legend of Zelda was so popular, they were like, okay, let's make a version of that and let's have it on a Game Boy. And originally they were going to have it be pretty much a port of Link to the Past, but it ended up being awesome on its own, and it has its own things. And of course, the Ocarina of Time, considered probably one of the best games of all time. Honestly, Link to the Past could be considered one of the best games of all time. Legends of Zelda could be considered one of the best games of all time. And even one of my friends, who's a big video game buff in a lot of ways, Josimar King, he actually says that Link's Awakening is one of his favorite games of all time, which has a great soundtrack. So choose your choice right there. So that's sort of how the games came out sequentially, but they don't quite make sense because Link to the Past kind of is like, I don't know, the plot's kind of weird. You're like, wait, didn't Ganon already die? What's he doing here, right? And even Ocarina of Time is actually a prequel to all of these other games. And so kind of seeing that, we actually want to take a look at the history of Hyrule, right? So the history of the Triforce, kind of how stuff comes along. So initially, Ocarina of Time is actually the first of the Zelda games, at least 5, right? It gets greater and bigger, longer, down that, whatever. But this is actually the prequel to all the other games. This is like when Link's a little kid, and he's kind of doing his thing, right? And all of a sudden, he fights Ganon, right? Becomes a hero, fights the bad guy. And in this timeline, the hero is actually defeated. So it actually takes several different timelines with the different games in this one. But to actually take these 5 games, Link doesn't win. Link actually loses the battle from Ganon and he just dies. Because this is a different Link for different games. I'll talk about that. So Ganon's actually exiled from the Sacred Realm because these, great guys, whatever, these monks, they're like, oh, hey, well, we can't really have Ganon be here. So they throw him into the Sacred Realm. Right? That's where Ganon kind of wanted. If you remember in Ocarina of Time, you can try and get that, and I'll get into that later. So, creates the Dark Realm, Dark World, because Ganon, his evilness, and him having the power of the Triforce, because when the hero is defeated, that means that Ganon gets the entire power of the Triforce, right? Because Link had the Triforce, Zelda had a Triforce. Yeah, it's a bad deal. So, Link to the Past, right? We have our Dark World. So Ganon returns through Aghanim, right? And then Link defeats Ganon. Actually, well, kills Ganon this time around. Before, he wasn't killed, he was just exiled. Right? We got Link's Awakening. Link's Awakening doesn't have much to do with the storyline, although it sort of is a direct sequel from A Link to the Past, and that it is Link. Right? It actually is the same Link from Link to the Past in Link's Awakening, but it's kind of its own little magic storyland where he just kind of Link floats off and gets stranded on this little magic island that has a really great plot of its own, but sort of is a plot separate amongst itself. So once Link has kind of taken the Triforce, right? The Triforce is now unified, and it's not in the Sacred Realm or anything. That's where it was before. It's in Hyrule, and so the royalty they actually use it to rule the kingdom and to have peace and sort of a happy golden era time. Unfortunately, one of the things is that the king. He sort of passes it on to the next king, that kind of stuff. You know, I guess the Triforce doesn't give you immortality, although Ganon seems to have figured that out. He's the same game as all the other games. I never quite understand that. But Zelda the First is essentially what ends up happening. This is the adventure of Link, sort of basic plot, whatever. In that Link, the king, tries to pass it on to his family members, and he doesn't find that his son's really up to snuff for it, and so he actually gives part of the Triforce to his daughter Zelda. And so when the king dies, the son, he's like kind of pissed. Or she gets the Triforce of Wisdom and or Courage. One of them. One of them. It gets confusing after a while. Yeah, so she gets one of those, and the son, after the king dies, is like pissed because he's like, wait, I don't have all the Triforce. What's going on? And Zelda, she's like, no, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you what it is. It's mine. Whatever. And so he gets pissed and hires this like wizard guy, which is sort of a random plot thing, honestly. This wizard to take her out, man. Puts her into like a deep coma. What this does is it also weakens the power of the Triforce in the land because the Triforce of Wisdom that she has is lost, right? Or Triforce of it's the Triforce of Courage. The Triforce of Courage that she has is lost because it's with her, and so no one actually, or it's gone, whatever, and you can't find it, and the kingdom kind of goes in a waning because they don't actually have the true power of the Triforce to kind of rule. It's like a country without its with less of an army. And so Hyrule moves into decline. It sort of isn't the powerful country it was, even during Ocarina of Time, because with Ocarina of Time, the country was peaceful, but great. And then Link to the Past, there'd been all sorts of battle, but there was still lots of infrastructure. And then with the waning of the monarchy and the loss of the full Triforce, it's lost. So then Ganon returns again, even the Hyrule's in decline, and he steals the Triforce of Power. There's Triforce right here. He steals Triforce of Power. The Zelda. So after Zelda had gone to her coma, whatever, all women of the royal family became Zelda name. So it's not always the same Zelda. Like it's not always the same Link, but it is always the same Ganon. So he steals Triforce of Power. He wants to get the Triforce of Wisdom. Triforce of Courage is the one that's in the Adventure of Link. No, Triforce of Wisdom. And he steals it, takes it. Zelda, fearing that he's going to try to take the Triforce of the Wisdom, she ends up like separating into 8 different castles, and Link has to kind of go through the 8 castles to kind of try to find them. Link obtains Triforce of Wisdom, takes the castles, etc. Defeats Ganon, right? Takes him out, kills him off, right? As far as we know, he's dead. Well, we killed him again. He kind of keeps on coming back. They never explain how he came back this time, but now the Adventure of Link, that's sort of the 5th in the series, right? This is the sort of order as the games go, right? Ocarina, Link, Link's Awakening, Legend of Zelda, Adventure of Link. That's kind of how they go in more of a history timeline kind of way. In Adventure of Link, Link obtains the Triforce of Courage, right? He goes to all the little temples and protect it, whatever. Obtains Triforce of Courage, and Zelda 1 awakens, and that's sort of